to Two Bears Podcast. This is part 2 of June 2025. But this is something that's kind of new and exciting is I may have the opportunity to open a restaurant in Bonita,
Where is Bonita?
just north of Naples. So it's literally like the next little place north of Naples is Bonita.
Have you ever been to, speaking of north of Naples, have you ever been to, there's a town in Florida, it starts with an A. It's a very cool name, almost like fantasy novel name. Hold on, I'll pull it up right now. This is gonna go into a deep dive,
Okay.
really awesome conversation. It is in Arcadia.
Yeah,
Have you
I've
ever
been to
been to
Arcadia.
Arcadia?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Arcadia, there is a restaurant called the Yellow Deli.
Yeah, I've been to Yellow Deli. I
Okay,
know the Yellow Deli people.
so in Chattanooga is where the Yellow Deli started. And I for the first 2 weeks did not go
Right?
because of everything I heard.
Yep.
And then finally I sucked it up and my wife and I went together and it was the best soup and sandwich I've ever had in my life.
Yep.
After that, we probably went back like 35 times. They invited us to their like
Yep.
gatherings and stuff.
Yep.
And this leads into a very interesting philosophical debate. Okay, so for all of you listeners who don't know,
Well, do you want to
that
talk about the food first? Like, why was the
yeah,
sandwich? Why was the sandwich
yeah,
good? Why was
absolutely.
the
So the food is all like super organic, farm produced,
Yep.
amazing food. Um, all their breads are baked in-house.
Yep. By
They
and
kind
just let everyone know their master baker, the guy that's in charge of all their bakery programs, his name is Hobob, and
Hobob.
I've actually
Okay.
worked with Hobob and played in the kitchen with him, all that kind of stuff. Hobob, I would consider a really good friend.
That's amazing. Um, what's his what's his tribe name? Because there's no way he goes by Hobab.
No, Hobob was I think the father-in-law of Noah.
Okay, cool. So it is
Yep.
it is one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just a little prelude to the insanity that follows. So they do steamed sandwiches, which I've never had before. Their steamers are hand built. They build their steamers. And they put everything in the sandwich and then they steam it and it comes out to you and the crust is still crusty and everything is moist and absolutely delicious. Their sourdough is kind of like a lost art sourdough because modern sourdough is like really, really crispy crust and as much air inside as possible.
Right.
And their sourdough is really dense,
Yeah. Yep.
like no air pockets. It's like sponge bread, but
Yep.
it's incredible. Best cornbread I've ever had. Um, They do soup of the day. I did not get to try them all, but I tried at least 15 of them.
Right.
On like their tomato basil soup, like when you put it into your mouth, it collapses into like a cloud.
Right.
And their butternut squash soup is the most delicious soup I've ever had in my life. Their hot dog is the best hot dog I've ever had. I think it's a Hebrew National, but they bake the bun.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. Like destroys your concept of what a hot dog is. They actually told me they use boar's head deli
Okay.
meat, but everything else is like in-house.
Right.
And done best waffle I've ever had.
So,
Uh,
did you have anything with mango while you were there? Like a mango
I had
smoothie, anything like that?
I had the mango mate.
Okay, so let you know and to let people know this is how it works is with 12 tribes you have places all over the world and like Mate Factor the mate that you buy in the store was originally a 12 tribes company from I think Brazil uh, and they were the first people to be able to take mate and be able to process it so that it would still be green and not roasted. That also goes to 12 tribes. They the mango that you had was from the farm just north of here on Pine Island. They have a mango farm. And so they do all the mango, they process all the mango, and then that gets basically shipped, sold, traded to all of the other like all of the yellow delis and tribes in the United States.
But there's more.
Okay.
They have tribes in Spain,
Yep.
Italy, Alaska, all over the world. In
Yes.
Spain, and Italy, they produce olive oil and honey.
Yep.
Amazing olive oil and honey. In either Vermont or Canada, they tap maple trees
Yep.
and produce the best maple syrup I've ever had in my life.
Yeah. Vermont is they have a big community in Vermont.
You know, and they have a community in Alaska and they catch wild salmon. Now, wild salmon is far inferior to farm salmon in like flavor and texture, and they also overcook it, but it's pretty amazing what they've done. So basically, all their labor is free because everyone who works there is part of the 12 tribes in which you have to relinquish all your earthly possessions.
Yep.
Um, most of their product is, if not free, it's in-house. So like they do buy it from the other communities,
Yep.
but it's like in-house. And between that, dude, they're doing like 80% of their product in-house and all of their labor,
Yeah.
and they don't pay taxes.
Yep.
And it is a wildly also every single restaurant is hand built.
Yep.
Talking hand carved wood, hand painted,
Yep.
just gorgeous artistry everywhere. Um, and so I was asking people around Chattanooga, like, oh, have you been to the Yellow Deli? I've been there, it's amazing. And half of the people are like, yeah, it's amazing. And half of the people are like, you shouldn't go, it's a cult.
Yep.
Right. So I look into the cult. So the 12 tribes is messianic, Judeo-Christian uh religious practice.
Right.
They believe that once they hit a certain number of followers,
Right.
which is like 22,400. It's a
100,
multiple of 12.
144,000.
Okay, yeah, everything is like a multiple of 12 somehow. That, like Armageddon, end times will come and the
Right.
world will be rebuilt, whatever. Basically, what most Judeo-Christian religions kind of see as the end game. They categorize people into the holy, the righteous, and the filthy and unjust.
Yep.
I believe I am filthy and unjust. And then, from my understanding, like practicing Christians are righteous.
Right.
Anybody not in that category is filthy and unjust, and then they themselves are the holy and enlightened or whatever. They're the nicest people you've ever met in your entire life
Absolutely.
and provide the best service you've ever had in your entire life, right? So people are fascinated with cults. There's always something, right? What is this cults thing? This cults thing is that in order to date someone inside of the cult, it has to be like democratically voted on by everyone and everyone has to agree to it. And that the children are considered children of the tribes
Right.
and they believe in corporal punishment. So when you tie
Yep.
that together, anybody's allowed to beat anybody's kid is basically what I got to. And I didn't find any like rape or sexual things,
Right.
mostly just corporal punishment, which is not okay. I'm not okay with it, and child labor, which I'm not okay with. However, like if you buy from McDonald's, if you buy from any major company, if
If
you
you have a cell
yeah,
phone,
yeah, if you live life today, if you wear shoes, you are consuming the products of very questionable practices involving children. Even I think Tyson was just called out for having like large amounts of like illegal immigrant children working their factories.
right.
So, no, like I don't believe in supporting that kind of stuff, but in the end of the day, like I think it's almost impossible to spend your money in a way that doesn't go to those things. And when I tell you the best soup and sandwiches I've ever had in my life, like
Right.
best soup.
So did you get to go to any of their gatherings?
No, I did not. They freaked me out.
You
They
should have
were
went. You
so
would have
they were
loved it.
fascinated by me because my wife and I both have Hebrew names,
Right.
and they would say things, and I'd be like, "Yeah, you're pronouncing that wrong."
Right.
Like someone said their name, I forgot which name, and I was like, "Yeah, that." Or they were like, "Oh, it's that's our friend Zebulon," and I was like, "Where is that name from?" And they're like, "Oh, it's biblical," and I'm like, "No, it's not. The name is Zavulun. Like the Hebrew letter vase is not interchangeable with an English B sound. Like that's
Right.
a really uh European translation of of what the language, and they were fascinated. They were like, "Are you a true seed Jew?" And I was like, "That is such a strange expression." I'm gonna say no because my mom converted, but they were fascinated by my biblical knowledge,
Right.
and they got very aggressive with inviting us to their things,
Yeah.
like where they wouldn't leave the table. But I also am at fault here because like they have all these pamphlets on a rack. And
Right.
one time in front of all of them, I got up and I went to the rack and I took one of each pamphlet.
I mean that.
So I was like really like,
So there was a big community up in Vermont, and some of the neighbors were convinced that they were like stockpiling guns. And so they came in and they raided the whole community. They literally came in the middle of the night, grabbed everyone and took them to a local school, separated the women from the men, and like were interviewing them while they were going through their community and like ransacking it, looking for weapons and bombs and stuff. And uh, make a long story short, they didn't find anything. Like there wasn't anything there.
they're not violent.
And well, the
Or
so
are they?
no, they're not. Like to this day, they celebrate that raid. Like the police that did the raid will come there and they'll have a big celebration with the police. To
Because it's like vindication.
and it's but it's I mean it's we would visit the Plymouth community quite a bit when I lived in upstate New York, Connecticut, and uh, so after we were there for we'd be there like every other week for probably like a month or two. And
Oh, wow.
at the end, I was like, "Listen, let me as a thank you, let can I cook you guys a dinner?" So I cooked for the whole entire community.
They ate your food?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
and
I was under the impression that they were like not able to do that.
we did. And
Ah.
so I mean, I was in their kitchen. I used the ladies were helping me cook and prep and do all
Okay.
that kind of
Okay. So
stuff.
you're using their ingredients and
Yeah,
stuff.
and so
Okay.
and just to let people know like this is kind of how things kind of work. We were in the process of serving dessert, and the there was a question about what kind of plate was going to be used to serve the dessert. And I'm of the opinion of like you have three plates. We have 100 and some odd people. Whatever we have 100 and some odd of, let's use that plate. And and so they're trying to decide, which plate to use. And this woman comes up behind me and she's like, Don, which of these do you want us to use? And I just turn around like whatever one you want to use. And she goes, Don, you are the man. You make the decision. And I mean, I was like, okay, that one. But that's the
And
kind of
you're like, "Shh." I
that's kind of that's
I
kind of
love
the
that.
I don't want to say it's the mentality, but the idea of the man is in charge and you will make the decision.
Yeah, they're interesting. I mean, to me, like obviously I don't support anyone beating their children, but like I don't know, man. Like, like they're not bad people and
Right?
they're all adult. I mean, well, some of them are born into it,
Oh yeah,
which is a different conversation, but I don't know, man. To me, they're really sweet people and they make amazing food. Like that's it.
right.
That's it. Because I've worked in kitchens where chefs threw things at people, and the food was amazing, but they were terrible. There's a terrible person who
Right.
was executing it, and like, man, they when you go in there, the music has no lyrics, and it's like the Shire music. It's
Oh yeah.
like flute and like lyre. I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, it was a magical experience every single time.
Yep.
And that's it, man.
And the
That's it.
so if you would have gone to the gatherings, they would have brought out the instruments. They would have been playing their own music. They would have been dancing. Like,
Yeah, I know. They told me they're like, you think we're nice now? Imagine how nice we are at our worship thing. And I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think you're all fascinating. Like I went in there like a reporter
Right,
every single time. I didn't record anything, but I would ask them incredibly manipulative lines of questioning because they're not supposed to talk about anything basically.
right.
And I got them to divulge large amounts of information, by like easing them in and out of their comfort zone. And I would have loved to have done it, but I was out of town and I did not have a babysitter, and
Right.
there's no fucking way that I was bringing my child into
Oh,
into their house.
so they
Like
would have taken your kid
that's
and
what I'm saying.
they would have
Like
loved that child like you would not believe. Because we went with our two daughters, and part of it was like you could just bring them, here's our kids, and you knew that they were safe. Like,
you weren't worried about them being corporally punished.
no, they wouldn't do that to your kid.
Oh, it's only their kids.
It's
That's
only their
cool.
kids. Yeah,
Well, I will say they were all very interested in the child.
right.
And I saw some older women who were there look at the child in ways that like there's so much trauma in their eyes. But there was one time where one of the servers who I really liked, who was really cool, um, he was like looking into the stroller, and he like reached out and like tried to touch my child's foot, and I smacked his hand away. I immediately was like, "Don't touch my child." you know? But I have that reaction to anyone. It wasn't it
Right.
wasn't specifically tied to them, but before I had a daughter, I thought I would not be a protective father, and I am now realizing that is not what's going to be happening.
The other thing, when you go to those gatherings, they actually make jokes about drinking the Kool-Aid.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. Because
Do they?
they make this awesome like hibiscus tea, and they also make this a thing
I've had their hibiscus tea.
that they call common ground, which is like their coffee substitute type thing they make with honey and milk.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah, I've had that too. Also the Old Saint Joe, one of the
right,
best things I've ever drank in my entire life.
so yeah, so they say that it's okay to drink the Kool-Aid,
That's really funny. I will say the one thing that I didn't like was their house tea
right?
was like a spearmint, and it was very sweet.
Yep,
And that to me that was there was also one bread. There's one bread that came with one of the salads that I liked the bread. My wife didn't because it had fruit and nuts in it, and she
right.
doesn't do fruit and nuts and stuff. And they brought it to the table, and Amatai was our server. I love Amatai. He's such a cool dude. He brought it to our table, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Amatai. Like, can we?" I use their names
Right,
every time I spoke to them because they
right,
use my name, and like I had to keep it going.
right.
I'm like, "I'm so sorry, Amatai. Like, that's not really our favorite bread. Is there any way you could change it?" And he looked so upset. Like, that's the only time I ever saw like emotion out of anyone
Right.
there. And he was like, he got in my face and he was like, "Zev, you don't like this bread?" And I was like, "No, Amatai.
Right,
Like I don't mind it. It's not my favorite. My wife doesn't like it."
right.
And like also one time they brought out something wrong to the table. And I was like, "Oh, I don't think we ordered that. I think we ordered this." And like three of them came up and took the server away, and the server disappeared for 15 minutes
Right.
and came back out to the table and was like, "I'm so sorry about that. I must have forgotten myself." And I was like,
You know they
"What?"
beat him that night. No, I'm
I
just
was
kidding.
like, yeah. I was like, "What?" Like they had like a 15-minute like reconditioning session in the back
Right.
and brought him back out. But I love that place.
But I mean, it's something to watch how they take care of their old people. It's something to watch how they take care of like different situations. I used to go to what was called a way out house, which was where people either coming into the community or going out of the community would like stay. And
They were going out of the community like to another community, or they
no,
were
like
going out like,
leaving the community altogether.
oh,
And so
is
and
that is
so
that a is that an easy process?
I mean I mean you can leave the community just by up and leaving, or you can decide to that you no longer want to be part of the community, and then you would go to what was called like the way out house.
Do
And
they allow you to like have a job and
well that was
make
the
money
whole
at that point because they give up their
well
possessions?
that was the whole point. Like the point of the way out house was to get you to that point where you could like step out.
So
And
it's a halfway house.
yeah, and
But the more I'm learning about it, the more like
but
it doesn't seem so bad.
but
Like,
just let people know, like when Zev is saying that you give everything to the tribe, you do. Like there's like they have an avocado farm in California, and the owner of the farm joined the tribe, and therefore the avocado farm was transitioned into the tribe, so that farm now belongs to the tribe. And so you would go if you went to one of their houses, basically there's a bunch of cars in the driveway and there's a bunch of keys in the kitchen. And so if you wanted to go somewhere, you just see what car is closest to the end of the driveway, and that's what
it's
you
a
took.
commune.
Yeah, and it was
Also, no cell phones.
well, there are certain people who do carry cell phones.
Oh, I'm sure. My curiosity got so deep to where I was like, what was the exact date the 12 tribes started? What was the exact date the first Yellow Deli opened? I'm trying to figure out if like, is it the chicken or the egg, right? Did people start this religious movement and then start the Yellow Deli, or did people have the idea to start the Yellow Deli and then frame it behind a religious
No, the
movement
religious movement
to be
started
tax
first.
free?
The religious
But it
movement
was
started.
within a year. It was within a year.
So, did they tell you how it started? Like the impetus for it
Uh,
starting? So basically, they went to church, and the church was closed because of the Super Bowl.
and they were like, "What the fuck is this? God
And
doesn't rest for the Super Bowl."
exactly, and it's
Yeah.
and like literally like that was the start of 12 tribes.
But how did it go from like an offshoot of Christianity into like renounce your worldly possessions?
So they're doing Book of Acts Christianity. So if you look at the Book of Acts, they're giving everyone in the Book of Acts is giving everything to the church. And there's a story of Ananias and Sapphira in the Book of Acts, and that's where
Wait,
these
of
people
who?
Ananias and Sapphira.
I've never heard of the Book of Acts.
Okay, so it's the very
We
first
are
book
so far off track right
that we
now.
are. We can bring food into this.
Whatever. Let's.
So
I'm very curious.
so in the book of Acts, everything, all the possessions was given to the church, and then the church elders, leaderships, deacons would basically give it back. So if you needed money for things, they would give you the money. If you needed food, they'd give you the food. But basically everything belonged to the church, and then was kicked back to you. So it's in the book of Acts, there's Ananias and Sapphira who basically said that we're going to sell this land and give the money to the church. And they sold the land, but they didn't give all the money to the church, and God struck them dead. And there's the the book of Acts communities are in that they are a true communal force. Like they are a commune is what is what
I find it so interesting. So I was raised in a Jewish house, and like the I just find it so interesting that like the Old Testament, I'm not really familiar with the New Testament or like the Christian doctrine
right,
books, like all the writings that comprise the Christian faith. But the Torah is a storybook. There
right,
is not, besides the Ten Commandments in the Torah, there is not one time where it actually makes any rules or tells you to do or not do anything. And I find it so interesting that from my understanding, the New Testament is similar to that. It's like the documentation of Jesus's life and and like what he did throughout his life and how religion like extrapolated all the rules based on the interactions and the stories that are happening in that.
right.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Yes,
Especially since Christianity and Judaism, I mean, one's older than the other, but like they're both old. And like it just brings me back to like whenever like at a certain point things have to go from oral tradition into written doctrine. Like
right,
for Jews, all the rules and stuff that are extrapolated from the Torah are in the Talmud and the Gemara, which were like post medieval times, rabbis or scholars like studying them and then getting together and putting their thoughts down. I just like I feel like I should start a religion. Like
No, you need to start a cult
yeah, I
and then
feel
have
that's
the
what I really
restaurant.
wanted to say. Like I was like, when I was talking to Andrew, I was explaining to him the Yellow Deli, and he looked me dead in the eyes and he was like, "We should start a cult." And I was like, "Man, might be the only way, the only true way to make money anymore." You know?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. But yeah, those
all right, so back to food. Let's just like wipe slate and go back to food. Because
so
my
I've
wife will be
been
back in like 45 minutes. So we got like 30 to 45 minutes to do real food.
I've been another possible business venture type thing is there's a person in town who's really interested in opening up a hot dog cart. And some of the ideas, I can't really get into it because she has some really, really awesome ideas. And I don't want anyone to kind of pick them up and run with it.
Wait. Say that. Can you just roll that back to that one more time?
So she wants to open up a hot dog cart. Okay.
Yeah.
And she has some ideas that I think they're one of those things where it's like, no, I don't know anyone else there out there doing it. And
Like for toppings and hot dog builds?
well, it's it's that, but also like the brand that she's pretty much building for the hot dog cart.
Cool.
And and it's one of those things where it's like she loves hot dogs, she loves all that kind of stuff. She wants to do her own hot dog cart, but she doesn't know the business side of it, and all of the recipes and things. And basically, I'm trying to get her like vertically integrated so that she's making all of her own sauces, she's making all of her own, like that she can also sell. But yeah, so like exotic hot dog uh toppings and things like that. Because I don't, we want to do the classics, but we want to do some kind of really simple, kind of off the cuff. The one that I'm fixated on right now
Yeah, just give me one.
is
Give me
pineapple
one.
chutney. Like I want to do a
Oh,
pineapple chutney on a hot dog. Is kind of like the
you know, it would be really awesome with that. There's an Indian product called Sev, SEV.
right,
So it's like the most similar thing I can think of is like katafi,
right,
like almost like I don't think it's phyllo dough, but it's these tiny little like in the shape of macaroni, but like no hole in it, tiny little
right,
crunchy fried bits, and
right.
that would go really nicely with your pineapple chutney hot dog.
Well, there's also like if like Colombian fare. Have you ever had like Colombian hot dogs, Colombian sandwiches where they put the little potato, like
Oh
fried
yeah.
potato
Oh
things?
yeah. I went to Colombia. It was not a great experience, but that was for I was there before I met my wife. I was there with someone I was seeing, and we went to El Chato, which is now in like World 50 Best, and we both got food poisoning, but she was vomiting for like a week, which was our entire stay there. So I didn't really get to experience, but yes, I do love crispy potato sticks on hot dogs and on everything basically. We do that in Miami, the like Frita burger.
Yeah. So there's that and kind of end of harvest here in Naples. I was able to pick up like the tiny little baby eggplants. They're like 3, 4 inches. And in Spain, we would make a tapas with those, where we'd basically take them, score them, or cut them kind of halfway down the middle, score them, and then salt them for 20 or so minutes, rinse it, and then we'd make this really simple like sweet and sour brine for them, and bring that up to. We'd basically boil it, stick it in, let them sit for 20 minutes, and then drain it. And then we take onions, peppers, all the different classic like Spanish sofrite type things, saute it up, and then basically stuff those eggplants. Just serve it with a little bit of olive oil. So I got an opportunity to make that this year, and I have
That sounds
everything.
fantastic.
It's it's the one thing I love about tapas in Spain is like if you go to the right places, off the not the touristy type things, you get tapas like that. You don't get the typical,
Bocaneros,
right. So it's
croquettes,
and people also don't realize that
jamon
traditionally
iberico.
traditionally your tapas were based on the amount of food, the amount of money you spent on your drink. So
Oh,
if you're just buying beer, you'd get the tapas would just be like bread or a piece of cheese, something like that. If you're the more expensive your beverage, the more expensive your tapas would be.
that's very interesting. Tapas is my favorite style of eating. So tapas actually it's very interesting because tapas is the perfect thing for fine dining because
Right,
you can go from a tasting menu where you have one bite of 15 different things. You just
right,
put four of them on the plate and boom, it's a tapas.
right,
Like high end tapas. But my wife and I, when we go to restaurants, we never order like plated entrees. We'll order like seven apps,
right,
and we just share everything. And what's very interesting to me is like I feel like my real favorite food is street food, which is also kind of like tapas. But
yeah,
when you get into like the way Southeast Asian and Asian food is presented, it's kind of like tapas. It's not the small bite format, but like in Thai they call it samrap, and that's when like a true Thai meal is like a chili dip, a curry, a noodle, a rice dish, a protein, and like a steamed fish or something, and it all comes out together, and everybody shares a little bit of everything. And
right,
um, I feel like the food industry was trending in that direction,
right,
but then you had like major foods and other big companies like Carbone and like those try
right,
to come back in with the like entree, entree, entree.
right.
And I just wish that entrees would completely disappear from the planet and that nobody would ever order something for themselves and everything would be shared for like eternity.
Well, that's like you go into like classic Italian type places with the family for the family table. Uh, we would always send food to the family table for people to share. So it's like the community table. So it's like if there was people at the community table, we'd always send food there. And we kind of want to build them up to so that people would want to sit at the community table.
Yeah.
So that because then you never knew what you're going to get. Yeah, you ordered the food that you're gonna partake, but then we would always kick extra things. We basically check to see what you ordered, and then if there's a hole, we'd fill that hole. Thank you for checking out Two Bears Podcast. Tune in next week for part 3.